Hello everyone, welcome back to Crypto Cash. Thank you very much for joining me here today. This is your one-stop shop for everything cryptocurrency analysis, among other things. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to take a look at RLC, which is a cryptocurrency that I got a lot of requests for recently based on the price increase that we're seeing here right now. So the whole point of this is to help educate you on, best practice, good entry points, kind of help, essentially predict what's going on in the near future by understanding what's happened in the past, right? So the past essentially tells us a lot about what's going to happen soon. So we're going to look at that here, strictly technical charts, no fundamentals, and we're just going to go ahead and take a look at that. We'll dive into that in a moment, but just know I'm not a financial advisor. I have years of trading experience, but this is only for educational purposes, all right? So always do your own research. There's also $25 in Bitcoin available from Voyager in the link in the description below, as well as Telegram and Patreon if you'd like to reference that in your own time. Without further ado, let's go ahead and check it out. All right, folks, let's go ahead and take a look at RLC. And what we're going to do first is look at Bitcoin and Ethereum, just to kind of get a foundation to understand what the market is doing there, just so we understand the overall sentiment, and then we can take a look at the 1 day, 4 hour, 15 minute, and 1 minute charts to identify, top to bottom. Let's go with a very thorough analysis of RLC. All right, so let's take a look at that. And first things first is Bitcoin, and this is actually good. I'm kind of happy with this for a change, right? Because Bitcoin finally seems like it's figured things out and it wants to go up. But just something to note, the important thing for you to take away from this is that 57,000 is still a major support and resistance level, currently working as a support. But what's nice is we have the 50-day moving average that is essentially helping us out. It's combining with the 200-day moving average to, with our powers combined, creating a nice support level. So what's hopeful is the 50-day moving average continues to progress upwards with the price, and we see some type of support level that's consistent, right? Ideally, we see the price break 60,000, and then it's just homeward bound from there, but we are looking pretty good right now with Bitcoin, okay? And again, this is a 4-hour chart, by the way. I forgot to mention that. We're looking at the 4-hour chart for Bitcoin, and these are 4-hour trading bars. Ethereum, same scenario as well, but I always like to highlight this just so you know kind of how Bitcoin and Ethereum kind of work together in case you're new to the channel. When we had the destruction day, D-Day, whatever you want to call it, on the 17th of April, when all of our portfolios just lost a good 20% in 1 day, that is what happened. And this is what happened here. So in Bitcoin essentially took a dump, went down, Ethereum consolidated. Ethereum decided it wanted to ramp back up, and it consolidated again because of the fact that Bitcoin had its second major sell-off on the 22nd, and then the 25th of the last final sell-off for Bitcoin, and the price has been increasing ever steady since then. In case you're new as well, when people sell Bitcoin, they have a tendency of jumping over to Ethereum, which is why Ethereum increases almost contradictory to Bitcoin. That's why we see this major increase, even though Bitcoin couldn't quite figure out what it wanted to do. This major state of indecision is this right here, this nice Christmas color pattern, and it's been increasing back up now since Bitcoin is essentially back on track. So almost 300 in 1 day or less. That's awesome. So Ethereum's back on track, you could say. Big surprise with Bitcoin doing better, right? So let's go ahead and take a look at RLC. Now, RLC was a big request. I've gotten a lot of requests for this one recently, so I want to make sure to cover it. So thank you very much to my my community to kind of let me know about this one, because it wasn't really on my radar. I could see why, though, because it's been a lot of significant increase. I mean, shoot, that's a lot of movement. Okay, so this is a 1 day chart. We'll start with that first, and we'll just see kind of what's going on. So first thing to note, the 50-day moving average was working as a support level with a small variance. And again, did pretty well. This is the second Bitcoin sell-off right there. So that's pretty normal. So honestly, the 50-day moving average is probably going to be a pretty strong support level throughout this entire process. Now, it's not going to be relevant right now for a while, so let's just go ahead and not worry about that. And down below, why don't we go ahead and just note that the RSI is overextended. It's up over 70, and usually anytime it goes over 70, there's some type of retracement. We're probably seeing that right now. This hasn't closed yet, but we'll probably see one if we haven't yet. Okay. The MACD shows extremely bullish momentum, but I'm willing to guess that's going to dissipate perhaps soon, or at least we should anticipate some type of consolidation period like we saw there. or the last 3 days ago, so to speak. That's the 1-day chart. Not much else to really extract here. Just kind of normal chart when we see a price increase the way it is. And then if we look at the 4-hour chart here, the thing to note with the 4-hour chart is the fact the RSI is still under 70. This is a good sign. It didn't go up over. Obviously there's a retracement occurring right now. Maybe not severe, but it is happening. And the RSI is still under 70. So if you take a look at that, RSI being under 70, that's a really good sign. And what we should do is probably consider looking at the, we'll look at the 15-minute chart here in a moment, but for now, why don't we look at this here first. You see these moving averages, you got the 50-day moving average, it's coming up. That will likely work as a support level here in the near future. So pay attention to that. If the price comes down eventually, we will likely see that touched or tested within the next week or less. The other two moving averages are so far off it's not going to matter with the recent price action, recent price movement. We're not going to need to worry about that. And then if we look again, RSI, I've already identified that, but the MACD is swinging in an upward fashion, which basically tells us that there is essentially bullish momentum occurring now. Big surprise, right? We kind of already see that based on the recent price increase. So why don't we take a look at the 15-minute chart to see if we can kind of identify a good entry point or just best practice here. Wow, okay, that really jumped up there. Look at that guy. 1 15-minute time frame. How much is that? In just 1 15 minutes, in 15 minutes alone, 1 15-minute trading bar, we're looking at almost 24%. That's huge. Okay, so pretty big increase. No surprise that the price is kind of consolidating a little bit now. Usually when we see that, it's kind of standard for the price to come back down and retrace. And this does have kind of a pattern forming. So let's take a quick look at that. So first of all, this has a history of doing this, right? And if you're new to the channel too, I also say the same thing over and over again. But patterns repeat themselves, but they don't have to, right? So they have a tendency of doing the same thing over and over again. But then sometimes they'll just completely surprise you. But in trading currency, cryptocurrency specifically, I see that patterns do form and happen more often than not. And I think there's because of the fact that there's a major social sentiment and essentially just the fact that it's more hype based in a lot of cases where people can kind of get on the hype train, so to speak, and drive up the price for no good reason alone, right? So that's kind of what we're looking at there. But if we kind of just quickly identify the previous patterns. So first pattern, look at this. Volume is low, right? So it might be averaging somewhere between 50 to 100,000 volume per day. Or correction, per 15-minute time frame. And then look at this, out of nowhere, we got 1.7 million, then 7 million, 7 million traded in that one 15-minute time frame. So when that happens, that's usually some kind of big whale buying a bunch, and it drives the price up. People will jump in and try to invest, and then the price kind of slowly tapers off. So we got this massive increase followed by a consolidation period. Second massive increase, consolidated, tried to push up again, and then it got hit hard. Okay. Bear in mind, RSI was overextended here, so it makes sense that it eventually tapered off. But honestly, this sell-off was likely, again, just the whales doing their thing, selling off, people trying to buy, and it just kind of gets messy when that happens. So that shows me that there was more than just people like you and I selling off what they had bought right back here, right? Making a ton of profit, I'm sure, and leaves us kind of feeling sad and blue, depending on if we're holding on. And then of course we see these periods of just no volume. It's kind of weird. And then of course massive price increase followed by a sell-off. So I mean, again, history has a tendency of repeating itself, so I would not be surprised if we see something similar to this pattern here occur right up here. So we might see consolidation followed by a small attempt to drive the price back up. It'll hit its resistance line, come back down, and then start the same thing over again. So good news is it is making higher highs. It's just taking, it's just taking 1 to 2 day breaks in between. So usually when you have that kind of price movement, that kind of price action, you want to try to find a price that's low enough, that's still affordable to prepare for the next increase. Okay. So again, be very cautious, be very careful. I'm risk averse myself, so I would probably stay away from this completely unless I get some kind of awesome indication. I don't see that just yet, because here's the thing, on the 15-minute chart, when we see the RSI come up over 70, and we see that right here, the price almost always comes back down, right? It's just kind of a rule of averages. The price, whatever goes up has to come down, and you'll see that happen a lot. But what's nice too about crypto, in most cases when the price comes up this hard, this fast, it will usually find its average true range about halfway through. In other words, halfway from this top to this bottom, we should see the price range. So I'd venture to guess, my prediction, if you will, which I don't do very often, but you kind of have to try to do something like that in the scenarios because the technicals are not fantastic here. You're looking at 5.4. I would say $5.40 would be probably likely an average range we're going to find, an average true range over the next few days. That'd be my guess. Just based on the the history, volume spikes. I mean, you see just the volume is just kind of average and normal, and then out of nowhere just hits really hard. So it reminds me of what Dogecoin used to do at first when there was a bunch of Elon tweets, right? So it's kind of a similar concept. So I'm guessing there's something driving the price. And again, this isn't a fundamental analysis. Please look into that. Maybe let me know in the comments below if there is something driving the price. But based on the technicals alone, this is kind of a risky scenario. I'd be very careful, but I would try to find a good entry point. And let's go ahead and talk about that right now too, because an entry point in this climate is kind of difficult to predict. But all we can really do is look at the history, right? So jumps up, comes about 2/3 the way down, or 1/3 of the way down rather, and consolidates and tries again. So we should expect to see this come about 1/3 of the way down, somewhere in this range, about 560, consolidate and try to come back up for a second push. It'll likely sell off after that, and we might be right back down to the 520, 530 range. But here's what we want to do first, right? Instead of just speculating, let's use some type of support and resistance lines to at least identify some kind of help in case the price does go south on us. So first obvious one, you usually want to use a previous all-time high as a potential support level. So let's go ahead and mark this guy here. And if we look, it has already tested it one time, right? So it's no surprise that this previous resistance is now a potential support. There's no guarantees in that though, okay? That doesn't mean that you just buy the bottom and it's all good. Never do that. In fact, chasing the bottom is a very treacherous thing, right? Because we look back here, let's take this for example. Right here, the previous, I'd just say really close to the all-time high is right here at $4 and is that what, 485? So let's just mark 485. Come across here. And look at this, if you were to come, sorry, one sec. If you were to come closer and look at 485, so it's right here. Of course, it tested its resistance again and broke through like usual, no surprise there. But when it comes back down here, say you were chasing the bottom and you decide you wanted to invest right here because you thought that was a support. Broke down below, became a resistance, and worked a lot further down. So never trust a support level that was a previous all-time high, especially this short after a massive increase. I know it seems juicy and like, oh, what if it comes up again? It might come up again too, but it will likely come back down a lot harder. Okay, so just please be cautious. Please understand that. The reason why I say this is because of the inconsistency in volume. This has a pattern forming, which is not the healthiest, best pattern. There is a chance that this will ramp back up a little bit and then match the all-time high and get rejected hard. That's my guess. I hope it doesn't happen, but just bear in mind that could happen. So to me personally, I would not recommend taking entry until you have firm confirmation. Usually confirmation for me is 30 minutes, so I like to see two 15-minute green bars closing above a support level, which is either the VWAP or the previous resistance. So in this case here, again, not a recommendation at all, but at 568 roughly, if you see two solid green bars close on a 15-minute chart, basically a total of 30 minutes, then that might be a consideration for entry. But in most cases, when the price comes up this fast and this hard, and it comes down the way that is, the way it's retracing, I would venture to guess that you probably want to wait at least an hour for confirmation. I know that seems like grueling and difficult for a lot of people because it's like, hey, this is a juicy, coin, right? I want to get in, I want to invest, I want to make some money off this. Don't do it. Worst case scenario, the price goes up and you miss out on some profit, but best case scenario, you don't miss out on a bunch of losses and gains and be stuck in in a currency that you're waiting to recover for days when you could use that money on something else, right? So the whole point is to not invest everything you have and to ensure that what you have you're okay with losing. And so in this case, this is a gamble, this is a risk. As we can see here, there's a second green bar forming, so normally this would be good confirmation. Again, this has to close green first, but just say it did, I still wouldn't feel comfortable about it based on its history alone. Again, I hope I'm wrong, I really do, but I can tell you that in my experience, things like this have a tendency of just falling out. Plus the RSI is still really close to 70, just not a good entry point. I would personally wait for it to drop, come back down. It will eventually probably test the 485 range. In fact, I'm going to pull this over here for next time. And I wouldn't be surprised if this is the new support level after it breaks this one. Again, I hope I'm wrong, but that's the case in point. So my action plan here would be to take no action, to wait a lot longer for the price to drop below that support level and to see what happens after. If it loses VWAP, then wait for it to hit the 485 range and see what happens. Always wait for confirmation, never take entry when the RSI is close to 70. Plain and simple. So hopefully you found benefit from this. If you did, please let me know in the comments below. I am trying to get some training videos together too for my Patreon account, so if you'd like to reference that as well, I'll be having something to that effect in the hopefully near future with beginner, intermediate, and advanced trading techniques, so we can kind of break it down a little tighter to help everybody that is watching my videos. So again, thank you so much, whatever caliber trader you are right now, for watching this far and essentially just being a supporter of the community. Really love and appreciate you all. So thank you again, and we'll look forward to seeing you in the next video. Have a good day.